If you've been scrolling through endless lists of high-end laptops, watching the same best of videos, and still feel like you might end up with a machine that's either overkill or just short on the stuff you actually need, this review is here to clear that up. I've spent the last few days testing the Lenovo ThinkPad P16 Gen 3 in a mix of workday sprints and a couple of gaming sessions, and I want to walk you through the moments where it shines and where it trips up. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the thing that makes the P16 feel different from most gaming laptops is the way it's marketed as a mobile workstation. That means you're not just buying a big screen and a fast GPU, you're getting a chassis that's been tweaked for reliability, a display calibrated for color work, and a keyboard designed for long typing sessions. The question is whether those workstation-centric choices line up with what a gamer or a creative professional actually uses day to day. Who should consider this machine? If you're a 3D artist, CAD engineer, or video editor who needs to run CUDA-heavy renders while also wanting to squeeze in a few AAA titles after work, the ThinkPad P16 hits a sweet spot. The RTX PRO 5000 with 24GB of GDDR7 memory gives you the kind of raw compute power that will shave hours off a complex FRI render, and the 128GB of DDR5 RAM means you can keep massive scene files and several applications open without swapping. On the other hand, if you're primarily a gamer who plays at 1080p and doesn't need ISV certifications or the extra warranty services that come with a ThinkPad, you'll probably be paying for features you'll never touch. In that case, a more gaming-focused brand will likely give you a better price-to-performance ratio. Let's talk about the display because it's the first thing you notice when you open the lid. The 16-inch 3.2K OLED panel hits 600 nits, so it's bright enough for a sunny office and deep enough for HDR content. In practice, the colors stay punchy whether you're grading footage in DaVinci Resolve or hunting for that perfect shadow detail in a first-person shooter. The touch capability is optional for most work scenarios, but I found it handy when sketching quick concepts in Photoshop. My stylus glides without noticeable lag. The downside is that OLED panels can suffer from burn-in if you leave static UI elements up for too long, so you'll want to enable the screensaver or dim the UI during long compile sessions. Performance-wise, the Core Ultra 9275HX with 24 cores feels more like a desktop CPU than a laptop chip. In multi-threaded benchmarks, it topped out at around 5.8 GHz under boost, which translates into smooth playback of 8K video timelines and rapid export times in Premiere Pro. In gaming, the RTX PRO 5000 isn't a gaming-only GPU, but it still manages 1440p 60 frames per second in titles like Cyberpunk 2077 with DLSS on. The frame rates are consistent, but you'll notice a slight dip in the most demanding ray-traced scenes, nothing a gamer would find unacceptable, but it's a reminder that this GPU is optimized for professional workloads first. One practical strength that often gets buried under the spec sheet is the storage configuration. A 4TB PCIe-NVMe SSD gives you enough room for a full project archive, multiple virtual machines, and a sizable game library, all while maintaining sub-second load times. I tested booting Windows, launching a 120GB Unity project, and loading a 30GB Game World back-to-back, and each transition felt instantaneous. The downside? The SSD is soldered to the motherboard, so you can't swap it out for a larger drive later without replacing the whole board. However, the chassis does expose 2 additional M.2 slots for RAM or secondary storage upgrades, which is useful if you plan to add a fast scratch disk later. Thermals are a common pain point on powerful laptops, and the P16's cooling solution is a blend of larger heat pipes and a dual-fan system that Lenovo has been using in its workstation line for years. Under a sustained 30-minute render, the CPU stayed around 85 C while the GPU hovered just under 80 C. The fans ramped up audibly, but the noise stayed below a typical office chatter level, which is impressive for that power envelope. If you're in a quiet studio, you might still want to keep a fan speed profile that leans toward cooler temperatures at the cost of a little extra noise. One hidden trade-off is the thickness of the chassis. At 23mm it's thicker than many gaming laptops, so it doesn't slide into ultra-slim bags as easily. Keyboard feel is a hallmark of the ThinkPad brand, and the Backlit KYB keyboard on the P16 lives up to that reputation. The keys have a short travel and a tactile bump that feels comfortable for both code-heavy sessions and long gaming raids. The perky RGB lighting is subtle, but you can program zones for a bit of ambience if you're into that. The touchpad is large and supports Windows precision gestures, but you'll probably spend most of your time on an external mouse for precise 3D navigation.